After doing my last albums to check out post, I realized I didn't put any albums from one of my favorite genres, progressive rock. If you aren't familiar with progressive rock, it's a type of rock music that originated in the late 60s. It focuses on abandoning standard pop traditions through the use of complex arrangements, highly technical play, and untraditional instruments, meaning instruments other than vocals, guitar, bass, and drums. Some common traits of prog rock are weird time signatures, as in ones other than 4/4, long instrumental sections, different song structures, not reliant on or not even having a chorus, fantastical lyrics, and just generally longer songs. This list isn't meant to be that obscure, but if this one, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, King Crimson, In the Court of the Crimson King, Yes, Close to the Edge, Jethro Tull, Aqualung, and Rush, Moving Pictures, is an introduction to prog rock, then my list will be the next step, or intermediate prog rock. So let's begin. Number 1, Pink Floyd, Animals. This album is still one of Pink Floyd's big albums, and part of their hot streak in the 70s. However, of their 4 major successes in that time, from Dark Side of the Moon to The Wall, this one seems to be overlooked the most. It's too bad, as the album's concept is fantastic. Animals is loosely based on George Orwell's Animal Farm, where Pink Floyd uses different animals to represent different portions of society. They use dogs to represent businessmen, pigs to represent those at the top with power or wealth, and sheep to represent the rest. This album has clearly aged very well, as the concepts are even more poignant now than ever before. The album only has 5 songs, and could even be considered as 4 songs, as the opening and closing tracks are just parts 1 and 2 of the same song. Being shorter helps to make the album a little easier to listen to as a whole, which is the way many Pink Floyd albums are meant to be listened to. Number 2, Gentle Giant, The Power and the Glory. To continue, I decided to put another album that tackles a similar subject. Gentle Giant are a prog rock band that are known to be very complex, even by prog rock standards. But don't let that turn you off. Despite the complexity, the music is still very listenable. I was choosing to go with either this album or Octopus by them. Octopus is a little more well-known, but I personally prefer this one. The album tells a story of a man who attempts to take political power in order to make changes to help people. Once the man gets into power, he is then tempted to abuse this power. He is eventually corrupted and becomes the very thing he originally fought against. Again, this is a tale as old as time, and is very relevant to this day. Number 3, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Tarkus. I thought about putting Rush's 2112 here, but I figured that was a little closer to the introduction to prog rock level. So I chose an album with a similar structure. This album hinges very much on the title track, a nearly 21-minute sci-fi fantasy tale of machines and monsters fighting. The song breaks into 7 sections, alternating between instrumentals and vocals. The album art shows Tarkus, a mechanical armadillo with cannons, that the story follows as he fights with another mechanical monster named Mass, and the Greek mythological creature, a manticore. If that sounds like a completely bizarre and wild trip, it is, but a fun one. The rest of the album is very pleasant as well, and makes for a little easier listening. Number 4, Genesis Nursery Cryme. I knew I wanted to have an early Genesis album on this, as I find a lot of people don't give the Peter Gabriel prog rock era of Genesis enough credit. I couldn't decide on one to put, and ended up going with this one as it has my favorite song of theirs, The Musical Box. I will say, however, outside of that song, the rest of the album is lacking in production. Not to say it's bad, just that it likely needed a little more work done on it. The Musical Box is a hauntingly beautiful song, with a disturbing tale told in a lovely way. The tale is of 2 children. The girl kills the boy with a croquet mallet. She then finds the boy's music box, which plays Old King Cole and brings the boy's spirit back. The boy starts aging rapidly and is hit with all the hormones of puberty at once, so he tries to make sexual advances on the girl. Luckily, the nurse comes in and throws the music box at him, destroying it and taking his spirit with him. An interesting listen for sure, and a perfect showcase of what early Genesis brought to the table. Number 5, Yes, the Yes album. Probably the most radio-friendly album on this list, the Yes album is my favorite album by Yes. This one does have some hits like Starship Trooper and I've Seen All Good People, but much like Animals before, this album seems to get overlooked in comparison to the rest of the band's repertoire. Oddly, a lot of musicians love this album and consider it a favorite, yet it never seems to come up in greatest albums lists, with Yes's other albums often being considered ahead of it. Starship Trooper is definitely the standout track here, but all the others are standing right there with it. So there's another 5 albums down, 10 if you count the beginner's crash course to prog rock at the start. Again, there were so many to choose from, and I had a tough time narrowing it down, hence why I decided to put the 5 at the start. I think I'll do more of these genre-specific album lists in the future. Let me know if you'd like to see that.